On the school bus to a new school, I was severely bullied, kicked, punched, abused by several year 6 kids outnumbered, thrown in whiz bins for months. That was where the whole passion, background came from, helping with kids, because no one thinks about identity more than an adoptee. When you want to start a personal brand, the first thing you need to focus on is your story and your message. It's the invisible part. Everyone wants to skip that part and be like, oh, that's nothing, that's easy. It's like, no, it's the hardest part. If you're a liar, if you don't admit how good you are, if you're asked to, you're selling yourself short if you actually downplay what you do as well. So don't oversell yourself because you'll be exposed, and don't undersell yourself because you're literally selling yourself short in life. And that's what I believe most people get stuck in with their brand and with their business and stuff. They hit a point where it's like, well...
Welcome back to the Out of Inches podcast, everybody. And you guys are probably wondering, the setup's a bit changed. We're not in our usual studio. We're actually in Sydney. We thought, you know what, we'll travel to Sydney, be a bit of a cool podcast and interview people all over Australia. I feel like that's when you made it in life, when you could travel and interview people. And it ties in well with our next guest. I feel like when you hit TEDx, that's when you're the real deal. And our next guest was on TEDx, and I'm going to let him introduce himself briefly. And Matt, welcome to the Out of Inches podcast. How are you, my friend?
Fellas, good to be here.
Thank you.
Do you want to introduce yourself real quick? Because you do something very interesting. You see, you're a brand expert, but also you're very passionate about mental health for the youth.
Yes.
Like, how did that all come about? That's
well,
very different.
Well, for those who are just listening to me, I know I sound Aussie, and those who see me and listen to me, they'll be thinking, "What the hell?" Because
I thought that when you said hello to me, like,
Yeah.
whoa, did not expect that.
Yeah.
Korean hardware,
Korean hardware.
Aussie software. That's
On
the
your
play.
bio.
That's it. That's the best way to describe this confusing combination. But yeah, that people call me the personal branding sensei.
Mm-hmm.
So I help founders, CEOs, experts to be able to market themselves or to be able to better talk about what their mission in life so that people can work with them. Because you got to talk about yourself if you want to make it and do something, whether you want the job, you want the promotion, you want... Your voice okay? So you want the job, you want the promotion, you want the girlfriend. Like, you have to be able to be confident in that way. But in Australia, we have a lot of reservations around people, particularly people being conditioned to think, oh, I'm going to be a jerk or seem like I'm up myself if I mention anything about me. But you're actually being a liar if you're a liar if you don't admit how good you are, if you're asked to. And you're selling yourself short if you actually downplay what you do as well. So don't oversell yourself because you'll be exposed, and don't undersell yourself because you're literally selling yourself short in life.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. In the mental health stuff, well, there's a massive need in... you think about the most vulnerable in Australia or in the world, they're children or the elderly. And there's just so much suicide and so much awful things that are happening with young people with cyberbullying and verbal abuse and name calling. Like, there was a kid who committed suicide not long ago. He was 10 because he was picked on for his teeth and his glasses on a school bus. I'm like, that's just... Who cares about politics or fashion when your kids are dying?
Yeah.
So I care about the things that matter, and I care... Ultimately, it boils down to I love helping people find their identity. Like, define yourself, find who you are, because you will know what to do.
Did something happen in your life personally for you to be so passionate for mental health? Usually the passion comes from when you experience something, right? So was there like a family member or yourself? Did it come from anything personal?
Yeah, it did. It wasn't... I definitely wasn't a... Let's find a niche in the market.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, kids need a lot of help.
Yeah.
No, it was because I'm adopted. That's why my accent's so different to my face. And I was adopted from South Korea. My birth mum and my birth dad, I don't know. Like,
Wow.
I was told by my orphanage that I was born on a barn floor in South Korea. My mum didn't know she was pregnant because she had no education, and she fell pregnant to a delivery guy. And yes, the next door neighbor delivered me on the floor, and I don't know how I came about, because so many things... I mean, there's been probably millions of kids who have not made it because of some birth, issue. Like, it's complicated. So I'm lucky to be here, and I guess I'm like Asian Jesus in a way, because I was born on a barn floor. and came over. I was named a different name. I was called Byong Dong Gyu. And back then, I think if I'd stayed, it would have meant shame because my mother gave me up because of the fear of being rejected by her family. So I was renamed Matt Purcell, which is pretty much a beautiful gospel message because I was taken from a situation chosen by Australian parents, renamed and given a citizenship here because they chose me, not because I had done anything to deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a pretty cool picture of grace. And it didn't bother me at all being adopted until my parents split up when I was 6. And it was messy, massive breakup. Mum would say things about dad, dad would say things about mum. And I'm like, oh, you both are horrible. Like, you did that to my mum, you suck. You did that to my dad, you suck too. So I'd be like, you both suck. So I didn't like them. And then I went on to a brand new school. My mum lived in a housing commission. And on the school bus to a new school, I was severely bullied, kicked, punched, abused by several year 6 kids outnumbered, thrown in whiz bins for months. And that was where the whole passion, I guess, background came from, helping with kids, because no one thinks about identity more than an adoptee. No one does, especially when you don't look the way you feel in terms of your genetics. I thought about it since I was 6. I was always this deep as a kid. Always thought about death, always thought about life, always thought about meaning. I gravitated to older people in the room. So my obsession with identity is pretty much fast forward to now. I help people with brand identity, which is synonymous with identity. They're just like, if you don't know who you are, then you're going to be, we call in psychology a copycat syndrome, where you try and emulate the most successful person you deem as successful because you lack a strategy and any values of your own. And what that actually does in branding is that all your marketing efforts actually serve them, not you, because you're reminding everyone of the leader, not you.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And that's what happens when I can copy your visual identity, like your clothes and your shoes, but the most uncopyable part is you, is your story. And people don't spend enough time crafting and curating and forming what makes them, a one of one, not a one of not like a cheap copy of everyone else. So that's why I love what I do. I use my depth and my philosophy to help people find their way. And then the kids thing, that's just natural. It's like helping the little Matt that went through a lot of stuff when he was a kid.
Man, I'm not going to lie, that felt like a Hollywood movie right there.
Oh, did it?
That was...
Make a doco of
I did not even expect that. I was like, whoa.
If anyone wants to make a film of this, just email me at RoxyBabe61 at Hotmail.
Are you looking for your biological parents?
I've had a look, and they've got to do a deeper search.
Yeah.
So what Ancestry.com doesn't cut it. They won't find.
Nah, they can't. No, it's a lot bigger than Australia. It's like 18 million people in Korea. So in this little country.
But you're like pretty popular over here. Like, it'd be easy to find. Like, they're not looking for you or nothing.
No, I don't think.
It's just none of you are interested at this point.
I know Koreans well enough to go that they pretty much only think about themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're ambitious, and I mean, Korea's history. Like, just real quick, I'm pretty proud of it. It kind of explains a little bit of my mystery of myself, because there's lots of things that I'm a mystery about. I don't know if I'm a walking time bomb or not, like genetically. But like history, in the 1950s, from the Korean War, Korea was as poor as India. It was one of the poorest countries in the world, and it had no natural resources like Aussie does with oil and stuff, or coal. So it had to become a creator to be able to show its value to things. So it created Samsung, LG, like Genesis, Hyundai, Kia, massive exporters, creators, and became in under 50, 60 years one of the most strongest economies in the world. And that's in my blood. That's I feel in my bones. It's really explains why I'm not like my mum and dad in Australia, because I feel like if you push me down, I'll find a way. Don't tell me it's too much, I'll find the money. Don't tell me it's going to take 10 years, I'll do it in 4.
Yeah.
But that wasn't from conditioning, that was from, I think, that spirit.
You know, on the topic of identity, Ali and I have this chat often where we're talking about, in the past, I think people, societies have felt in a way uneasy or threatened by external factors, wars, famine, access to water and all that type of stuff. Today we don't have those problems, but I think one big challenge as a society that we face is there's a big assault on the notion of identity, what we identify as in terms of our gender, our religion, our ideology, and all of that type of stuff. Somebody like yourself who focuses on that right now, you'd be a man in demand. What's your take on that today? How do you think society should navigate this forever lasting sort of barrage assault on the notion of identity?
Yeah, I think who you are is whose you are. So like in a lot of ways, when I play identity politics and I associate myself with I am my group. So I am this gender, or I am this religion, or I am this thing. It sets you up because you're taking on the consequences of the collective, and you're neglecting your own sovereignty. Like you've got your own choices amongst that. So I think off air we talked about the baby in the bathwater. And everyone says, don't throw the baby with the bath out. Everyone says, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And we think we get the idea, but the concept of that was back in the day when we didn't have running tap of water much. The most senior person would use the bathwater, the cleanest one, right down to the most youngest. So when the baby would get washed, it usually would be a bit dirtier because the people previously using the water. So don't throw the baby out because of the bathwater, which is now dirty because of the people before it. And I think one of the things that's really confusing people's identity is this assault on everything they have been brought up with. They're seeing their parents live a certain way, have traditional Christmas, traditional marriage, traditional everything. Anything that's traditional has been assaulted upon. I don't mind questioning anything. I'm very open-minded with, tell me what you believe. I won't just make a judgment without hearing it. But don't just assault things that have been around. Don't throw it out, because we risk starting from the Stone Age again. And I think a good scientist or good philosopher will look at what benefits have we gotten from that? What needs to be renewed? What needs to be thrown out? There's like closed hands and open hand philosophies. Is like closed hand is, how do we treat all people in respect? Open hand is, how do we look? How do we dress? That all changes in culture. But some things is like just human respect for each other is interesting. So like the value on life, the value on the human individual. So when people don't know who they are, it's usually because they're looking externally to be told who they are. Long story winded is like, if I'm asking you saying, hey dad, please tell me if I'm good enough yet. Please tell me if I'm rich enough yet, my colleagues. Please tell me, wife, if I'm handsome enough yet. You're at the mercy of everyone else's praises, and you die by their criticism. So it's always a choice with yourself as well, with identity. There's people can tell you who they think you are, but you've also, I believe, everyone has an innate divinity within them to be able to know who they are by themselves. They're actually a chooser themselves. Then they forget that. We forget that there's a person inside that has a choice, versus we hand that over to the world to say, am I good enough yet? Please tell me, did I jump high enough yet? And that's where we're at the moment.
Why do you think that is, though?
To be honest, this is my own opinion. I think we become very science fact driven, and the metaphysics and the identity, I think, belongs not to the scientists. How you see yourself is not just, you don't describe yourself as atoms and of particles and stuff like that. Who am I? Oh, I'm 100 billion particles and I am oxygen and lungs and hardware. How we describe ourselves is much more metaphysical and philosophical. It's like, oh, I want to be kind. I'm a child of God. I'm a child of... That thing has been completely seen in our culture as what is that?
That's backward.
It's backwards. You can't prove that to me, but how else do you want me to describe you as? Like bones and that? Like, how can I value that? Like, the most important part of a building is the invisible parts, because it holds it all together. And the most important part of people is the invisible parts. Like, I marry the person who's inside the shell, and they trust that of me. So the spirit is more than just this, you believe in Santa Claus stuff. It's, that's the true identity. It's not even what you do. That's just a description, not a definition. So I think I'm philosophizing out loud, but I think we confuse descriptions as definitions. You know what I mean? So like I'll describe what I do. I do branding. That's not who I am. That's a description of what I do.
It's very deep, man.
Sorry, yeah, is that time of
very
day? Yeah.
deep.
Yeah.
That's Are you a religious person, Matt?
I have a faith.
You have faith.
I have a faith. Yeah.
It's very lost these days. People don't really. You're right. Like people.
Well, the
have
thing is,
lost that.
faith, man, faith gives you bearings, right? It gives you a way to channel all that type of stuff. And without it, like you don't exactly have guiding parameters. There's no yardstick or benchmark or goalpost to say, look, well, I need to head in that direction. It's just like, well, I'm going to wander sort of aimlessly in the world and see where life takes me and just sort of figure it out. And whatever makes me feel good, hey, that's good.
It's literally like, you're right. Faith is like literally what a compass does. So a compass north-south points to the magnets of the north and south of the world. And that's what you get your bearings. So it's like, I know where I am based on this because of that, and it can get me home. Or can get me to safety. If people don't have some type of faith in something, then you have no bloody compass. So you are literally lost. Like it's a big claim to say, but like, well, what is the only real replacement for faith is people's validation and people's confirmation in the herd, or in the benefits that the societal benefits or the status benefits we've created as a society. Money's man-made, status is man-made, time's arguably sometimes man-made, but like we're getting into deep stuff there, but it's man-made stuff. But like what takes most people out today, you're right, is not war, famine and hunger. It's actually gluttony, jealousy, envy, all the things that are not, you'd say, all the spooky. But you could have a good man. I've seen so many good men being tempted and lost their way and sacrificed everything they've built in a moment. And what was that? It wasn't war, hunger, or famine that caused that. Something deeper. So we have spiritual, emotional needs for sure. And yeah, we're more than just, it's more than just money, isn't it? It's about impact and mission and message.
I'm interested to get your perspective on this notion of happiness and satisfaction and fulfillment and all these sorts of things. Because again, if we're talking about identity, we're talking about religion, we're talking about some pretty deep philosophical things. In a way, I think historically especially, people's notion of satisfaction and fulfillment came from those things. So looking at what I now feel that I'm closer to God, for example, or I'm closer to my family. I'm sort of, those things drive me, and that's a yardstick that I measure my success and satisfaction against. Now that society sort of moved away from all that, so now we wander the world aimlessly and say, okay, well, I'm not finding happiness. I'm not satisfied. And no matter how much money I have, how many material possessions I have, I'm just not satisfied because it's a bottomless pit, is it not?
Yeah. I think happiness is synonymous with selfishness or pleasure just now. I think most people think, I just want to be happy. And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with the idea of pleasure. It's just at what cost, who does it hurt, what dose. Like usually happiness in that definition comes at the sacrifice of long-term gratification for short-term gain. And I much rather think meaning's a better thing, or being useful, especially for men. If men want respect, no one casts aside a useful man. No one casts aside a competent person across all ages, races, countries. A competent man will be respected.
Be of service.
Be of service to others.
Yeah.
Because there's two types of methods with being useful. One is you have to improve yourself before you can help others. But then there's a service of others. To be useful, you have to be of service to someone. So that's, I guess in a works-based area, but it's a very good thing, I think. Men are made to work in a good way. Like people are made to work and use their gifts and use their mind to build and improve things. And I think if there was an evil enemy that didn't just want to literally show himself in front of you with a tail and a fork, pitchfork, to take you out, he'd want to probably get you hung up on something that's pleasurable, something that's like feeds those egos and feeds the status and all that from keeping you from being impactful and effective. I mean, one of the greatest tricks the devil ever played was making you believe he doesn't exist.
True.
Like if you're a prince and I wanted to take you out, but I couldn't get into your chambers, I'd love to be able to get in your ear and say, you're not worthy to be here. And that's what takes people out with their career and with their dreams, is that a lot of it is not because they don't have the ability or the opportunity to put 10,000 hours in to become a master or something. It's that they actually don't think they're qualified enough to even give it a shot.
Fair point.
And that's what I believe most people get stuck in with their brand and with their business and stuff. They hit a point where it's like, well, I've been told I need to get out front of my business. I've been told I need to share all this stuff that I've built. But who am I? It's this imposter syndrome. And that's the devil on the shoulder saying, yeah, don't do it. Because I swear, if you start sowing this seed, it's going to do some good. And I don't want that.
Yeah. I've always felt that, like, to counteract that thought process, I think what sometimes helps me is that, well, if you don't do it, somebody else will.
So true.
Right. So if you don't think you're worthy of taking the mantle and, taking up the mic and speaking about this or being an authority in this particular area, the next guy who will likely be inferior to what you have to say, but will be able to muster the courage and the self-belief and the conviction to be able to do that, will get up and will own that space.
That's what's happening right now.
Yeah.
What's happening right now is that the least credible people are actually the most popular.
Absolutely.
Let me say it again. The least credible people are most popular right now on social media. The most credible people are crap marketers.
Yep.
They're terrible at promoting what they do because why would they? For years, it's like, I don't want to put myself out front. I just want to be able to be a good business owner and do what I do and live out my values. I don't want to have to show anyone. But now that comes at a cost and a price if you don't consider it maybe in your industry to come out, because the world in social media has become very, very good marketers, and you've got a lot of spruikers and gurus out there that are doing a lot of harm to your industry. They either aren't as qualified than you, but they're getting good leads and good work, and you're missing out because you're not in the game anymore, or they're just damaging your reputation. I mean, I have a very close friend as an example who is in events, did massive events, and he had a competitor put on a massive event, marketed it really well, but caught wind that he was green and was managing the big talent from America wrong, and that it was looking like this event could tank. My mate called him up to say, I'm going to help you because if you stuff this up, this affects me and the whole industry. Yeah.
Matt, now the things I feel like a lot of people are scared of what other people are going to think. So maybe that's why they don't, go out there.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of the duds out there, they don't really care what other people
They have
think.
nothing to lose.
They have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a dud. They know
That's
I'm a
so
dud.
good.
I'm gonna go
So
hard.
true, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Right? And I think that's the thing that really, that's why the duds are rising to fame, I guess. Right? Would you agree with that? Because I feel like that the smart people, there's a lot of smart people out there that are scared of being judged or scared of being, I don't know, cancelled or scared of something, right? So that's what I think, right? I know, Mazza, you say, someone else might do it if I don't do it, but I feel like the doubts are like, I'm scared of, like, if I fail, they're going to judge me. If I make a video talking about something that's useful, they're going to judge me, right? That's what I feel like majority of people are scared of.
I love that you call them duds. I think that's just what I'm really entertained about. The duds have nothing to lose, so that's why they have this
duds are
confidence.
winning. Yeah.
Duds are
And the
winning.
smart guys have everything to lose because they've got the current reputation of what they built and stuff. You're right. A lot of the actual non-duds, the credible guys, they don't want to feel like a sellout.
Yeah.
And they don't want to look like a real estate agent who's going, you want to buy a watch? You want to buy a knife? That's how they actually want to, they don't want to feel like that because they've all got a reference in their head going, I just don't want to be that guy. I just don't want to be that guy. But you're right. There is a threat for both people. If you're actually a credible person and you aren't up with the times, the threat is you become extinct like the dinosaurs. No one wants you. Like, I put it in two categories. You're either relevant and not credible, or credible and not relevant. You can be one without the other. You can be the dud who has got a lot of great marketing tactics and gets a good following, has maybe a little course or whatever it is. He might be on Married at First Sight and get a lot of followers at sight, but guess what? You're wanted for a while, but you're not respected because you haven't built anything. This is the one thing you need to ask somebody to show if they're credible or not. Ask them, what have you built? Show me. And you should be able to show a business, a brand, 7 world titles like my good friend Lane Beachley has. That's credible. But you could be credible, but irrelevant. You could be the best singer, but have no one you're singing to. You can't save souls in an empty church, right? So like you could have a great message, but no one to reach. So you've got to go, there's always something at stake here. And what you've got to lose because of your pride or your fear of what other people think is extinction. Do you know what? Why McDonald's still advertises 2 to 3% of their revenue into advertising is because data tells me that you forget everyone very quickly. We forget.
That's very true.
We forget even famous people in 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
We can forget a person you met yesterday within 24 hours that you might have spent. You might forget me tomorrow, right? So the need to stay high touch in people's line of eyesight and awareness is the human requirement to be considered front of mind. Makes sense to me. But it comes at a cost. That's why the greats, I mean, the guys that have been around for a long time, they don't just disappear for a year or 3 years and you forget about these people.
100%.
Someone will always come up, like you're saying, like, oh, someone else is going to do it. Dead set they will.
Yeah.
Like, there'll be someone who will get the job done.
It's very common now amongst influencers, right? If someone doesn't upload for a couple of weeks, the algorithm forgot them, you forgot them, you forgot even you followed them.
Yeah.
Right? But at the time, the peak time, like everyone knew these guys. And then boom, within a couple of weeks, they didn't do anything, they're gone.
The biggest challenge influencers have right now with anyone with a following is turning that into something that's saleable or like have some liquid from it, some liquidity from it.
Monetization.
You got to
It's really
monetize that.
important.
How do you, like, sure, like, how did you get your followers is one question I ask. And two, what are you doing to be able to become more credible with that? Turn that into a brand. Like, the Inspired Unemployed did this brilliantly. They were the most famous comedy skit group in Australia. But I have a problem. It's like they're living gig to gig. Like they do a couple of shows, they do a couple of influencer paid posts, but once that's done, it's just a gig. Brand endorsements are the next thing. It's like a 12-month, 106-figure contract. They're good. You can plan them. But still, what is the long-term play here? So many people, I think that's the biggest issue today with online marketers, is that you're not thinking about 10 years. You're only thinking about next month. And you're not going to make it that long.
Yeah.
Because you're actually in the business of entertainment. You're in the business of something. And as soon as you don't understand, like if you don't understand you're in the business of something, you're just a hired hand. You're not an entrepreneur. You're an entertainer and you need a gig.
There are a lot of influencers right now. They you would know this. You live in Sydney, so there's this craze like, hey, I have a following, so let's create an acai shop or a spud spot, right?
Yeah.
That's everyone's like copying each other right now. And you live in Sydney, so there's like an acai joint everywhere, right? You being in brand marketing and whatnot. So how long can we predict where all these acai shops are going to close down? When can we expect the fall?
6 months?
That's like
The end is near.
the end is near.
Yeah, you know the funny thing is like from a business perspective, like for our business and for any other business, you're always looking for reoccurring revenue, repeat customers, and all that. Again, I'm no marketing guru like you guys, but you look at the business of influencing, and I was like, where's your reoccurring revenue, mate? Like, what can you do on repeat for the next 2 decades to be able to support yourself and your family for the next how many years? You just can't. Like you're trending today, and you're off-brand tomorrow, or you're a hot model today, and therefore you're current, and then 20 years later you don't look that good anymore. So therefore,
That's the whole of TikTok, man.
you can't. That's all. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So when they go into it, is there no one telling them, coaches and someone out there, mentors or whatever, saying, look, you know what, you need to create something that can transition through life stages with you. Otherwise, you're just a fad today. You're cool today. You're hip today, and before you know it, who cares? Has been.
I think there's a gap in the market for that, for sure. I think for anyone listening who's a good marketer, you could actually target people with large followings and say, this is how you need to actually make some money from this and turn this into a real thing. And I know someone who's a commercial lawyer who lives in Melbourne, good friend now, and her role is to help. She spots talent, and there's a criteria of what makes you brandable to be able to maybe create your own business from that following. So you're right. Like, no one is thinking about the long term. They're not thinking about business. They're thinking about acting and creating. And the funny thing is, and I think this is the big misconception of our generation today, is, I just want to do my passion. It's like, no, you're not actually. Do you actually know what that looks like every day then? You want to be a model for your passion? You're not a model as much as you are a business owner. You're in the business of modeling. You're not a model. The more time you'll be spending more time chasing work and marketing yourself if you're serious about it than modeling itself.
2 points.
So you're actually not in modeling as much. So be careful what you wish for. Just be careful. It's like the old parable, count the cost before you build the house. You start this influencer thing. It could be a good side hustle, but if you're relying on it, I do not envy you. That's a lot of anxiety every night, every month. When am I going to get my next gig? Or I have to do that. How long can you do that for? Like you said, like 60 years? Will the bank look at you and be like, that's reliable? There's so many gaps there in that model.
Yeah, I manage a couple of influencers, 4 of them now. And that's what I always talk to them about like stop waiting for the next email. Hey, do a TikTok video and here's a couple of bucks. Like, you have a big following. Like, commercialize it. Like, you're into makeup, you're into clothes. Open up a clothes shop, do something. Your followers are already there. They're gonna buy it off you because that's what followers are. They're pretty much sheep at that point. They love you so much. And let's touch onto the mental health of these influencers, because there's a lot of stories out there of influencers when they become irrelevant. A lot of them go into depression. Right? A lot of them are young. Right, you'd know this. Everyone knows this. It happens, and that I give that warning to them as well. Like, there's going to be a time where you fall off. It's going to happen, right? It's very rare for someone to make it massive. Like, it's lucky. It's luck of the game. You're in the hands of the algorithm at that point. And how would you go about advising these youngsters, influencers that lose their fame, going to depression? Because I've come across a few.
It's a very practical framework I'd suggest. If you're an influencer and you need to protect your mental health, do this thing. Talk about your influencer persona as if it was another person.
Okay.
Speak of yourself in third person. So the Matt Purcell brand.
Yeah.
That's how I'd separate who Matt Purcell is as an identity and as valuable to the actual thing. So he's an actual entity of his own. So if the Matt Purcell brand isn't doing so well, that's looking at objectively as if it was my phone on my knee right now saying, okay, what's wrong with it? It's not with me, it's with the mechanisms, business again. It's looking at it going, am I visible enough? Is my offer clear enough? Am I actually good enough? Like, in terms of my communication, am I in the right niche? Am I better to use the skills that I learned being an influencer to actually get a job being a marketer in some other business? Should I start a marketing agency? Should I look for affiliates so that I can have my own store and get affiliate deals from that? There's so many ways I can look at it once I separate it from me and my... So I'm not emotionally... I can look at it logically a lot less with less emotion, because we can tend to give advice better than we can take it to other people because we're removed from the emotional attachment. So that's the first step I'd say. And I'd be saying to them, you need to start seeing yourself. You need to read the book, The E-Myth, as a basic Bible of just business concepts of what body parts you need to run a successful business. You got to see yourself as a brand, not as an individual. Separate the two, because then your self-esteem's only going to go up and down based on vanity metrics. You're going to be like, it's based on my control. Like, what am I putting out? Am I putting out too much? Sometimes you need to do more. Some people need to do more of what they're doing. That's their problem. Some people are doing too much and they just need to look at, how can I become better then? Sometimes you need to do more to become better. And then sometimes you need to look at, maybe I need to do something new.
Yeah, it's not easy to do, because you look at, for example, like our business, the Hejaz business, and even though that's not it's not, I'm not the face of it or the brand of it. If somebody says something bad about that business, or doesn't take up the services or whatever it is, you still take it personally. Now, imagine how much more personally you take it if that was me, the person, if I'm the face of it, if that person isn't buying that product or whatever it is. That means that's personal at me, man. That means that you don't like what I like. You don't agree with my taste. You don't agree with my style, whatever it is. So it's quite hard to, especially at that age. A lot of these boys and girls are coming in their sort of late teens, early 20s.
That's where
and
they
they're
get their
not fully
confidence
formed.
from. Social media is their life.
Yeah.
Right? That's where they live. That's their real life at that point.
It's scary.
It's a reality check. I think if anyone's been burnt by social media from a negative comment or they feel lost, the reality check I help kids with all around Australia, and I tell this to same influencers this age, is you've signed up for this. Like, you put public content out there, expect the possibility. Have you ever thought about the possibility of where you're an easy target? Like, we're all easy target. Like, if you're an influencer or a public figure or a personal brand, the best public figures I know, they already beat the bully to the punch. They know someone could say Matt's got a moustache and he's an Asian small, he's a girlfriend height, he's a midget. Like, I know everything I can possibly come up with in my mind on the other side of the table, look at my feed going, yeah, they might not like what I have to say about this thing. So if you're not aware of that, then every single alternative opinion about you is going to hit you in the guts. Yeah? So you've got to that's how resilience is.
You got to have thick skin.
Thick skin is resulted by conditioning to say, I got to willingly take some punches. And you can do that from you're in a circle. You're like, well, where am I vulnerable?
Yeah.
How could someone where could I be go to ChatGPT, type everything you believe in and say, argue against it.
I bet you tried that.
Yeah.
So what was it like?
It was insightful. And it's like, wow, that's strategic.
Okay.
It's like Google pay a lot of money to somebody who can infiltrate the firewall. So if I can be strong in that area, that's how I literally think. This is how it's now evidence based through the University of Sydney. This technique of mine is I literally believe that if you can beat yourself to the punch and look at your physical abilities and go, okay, this is what I think I am. Then attack it like someone I hate me with. What would they say I am? Then look at it as someone like my mum would say I am. Then look at it someone like God who would say I am. You have 4 different perspectives of that same specimen. But at least you have a choice. That's how resilience is built. An emotional resilience. Complete perspective as much as you can on, especially on the enemy's perspective. You're ugly, you're worthless, no one's going to find you attractive, blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's not very nice. But that's not the only voice.
So would you consider yourself bulletproof? What's your limit? What tips you across the edge?
Don't talk about my mum.
Don't talk about your mum. Yeah, okay.
It's fair enough. You don't know why, but that's not funny.
Yeah, got you.
And just stupid low blow things, like anything about rate. Like, don't attack. It's worth people learning, especially we talk with our thumbs now, what a fallacy is, what the rule. There are rules to logic, that weren't just made up. In the sense of we've discovered this over time through philosophy and psychology. If we're talking about social media and you say to me, you wouldn't understand, you're too young, that's an ad hominem. You're attacking me, not the topic. So I can call you out on that. Be like, you're off topic. Let's talk about the thing in the middle here again. So you think, you know what I mean? So I can call it. But if you're not aware of those rules, you're an echo chamber or freaking people just wanting to agree with you, or you're having screaming matches. So that's what I mean. We've totally, back to the beginning of the conversation, this is a result of throwing out a lot of moral, almost faith-based type of guidance, of respect, of just discourse. Because if I disagree with you, that should be fine. But I shouldn't mean that I'm not attacking. It doesn't mean, if I disagree with you, doesn't mean I hate you. But most people can be like, I can't like you if I know you disagree with me.
Yeah.
That's a big problem in the world right now, especially with the woke people coming up, the multiple genders and whatnot. It's almost like if you don't agree with them, you're public enemy number one and you need to be crucified.
Yeah, does that mean I don't have a choice
Yeah.
to at all with you? I have no choice. I have no autonomy to be able to have a different opinion. That's interesting.
But you're only allowed to give them a choice, right? So they have a choice to be able to pick whatever they want to be. But the way you react to that, you have no choice in that regard. You have no choice into how you hold that view and whatnot. And to your earlier point, I don't know, personally, I've always felt that like people generally project their own insecurities onto other people.
Yeah.
The people who are inherently unhappy are the ones who project the most unhappiness into the world. And I was like, if you're going to say that to me, well, I'm like, that might be your coping mechanism. You may be using me as a human punching bag today to get off your chest whatever's bothering you. But that's more a you problem than it is a me problem. So how about you solve it for you and I'll take care of myself.
That's a good play. Like, this doesn't sound like a me problem.
Yeah, it happens so often. And a lot of people, particularly younger people, don't seem to be able to sort of differentiate the two and say that, a normal human being who has, let's say, a neutral persona or is in a happier place, they're not going to say such hurtful things. That's not how human beings are built to react. And because you're reacting in such an adverse, negative manner, there's something up with you. So maybe you need to go home.
Yeah, sometimes what gets rewarded gets repeated. So like sometimes our behavior we've received. Listen, like this does relate to social media and things like that. Actually, like why on earth are we so addicted to the attention from strangers on the internet? And the answer to that is psychology, because as humans we're social creatures, and there's a law of validation. There is this principle of validation. You need to be validated. Yeah. And the problem with validation is that there's only so much attention that's a resource around. So your family might be one of 8 children, and you're fighting for the validation from your mum, two people in your life. That's hard. And then you got your workplace and you got your schooling. So the internet is this place where you can get validated for very little effort, 24/7, baby.
Yeah.
So it completely is this amazing glove that fixes everyone's hand, but it's synthetic grass. Like, because the validation that I get from someone I'm with in the same space, working alongside, can be physical, can be like along the journey with, is real. It's compared to someone that, I never met a long distance marriage working from never being in person ever. It's like, I'm married. Oh, who's your wife like? Never met her in person, but we're married and things are going strong. Nah.
Yeah. I talk about that a lot with one of the influencers I manage. And like, everyone compliments you for your looks and whatnot, but like they don't know you. Yeah. Right? They all want to be your friend. They all want to be with you. Every second guy wants to marry you, but they don't know you. Right? You're this facade on the internet, and what they say to you affects you so much, but they don't know you. Yeah. Right?
And what they know you from is this perfectly sort of manicured content that you...
And that content had like 700 takes on it.
Yeah.
Edited perfectly. And then boom.
Yeah. And that it's that version of you that they like.
Yeah.
The real you probably won't understand, but that...
Most of the time. I agree with that.
That's the thing.
I agree with that.
This is a controversial view I've always had, but I have logic behind it. I think you shouldn't post your kids on the internet.
Agree.
I honestly think it's ethically questionable to be able to put your children up for whose benefit? It's not for their benefit.
No.
What benefit are they getting for you putting your kids up on the internet? Now, I always ask the question, what benefit do you get from putting your kids on the internet? It's like, I just love them. It's like, well, do it to a closed group of people who you only know, and you know that they know them. Why do you have to share it to everybody who don't know them? Because you want to benefit from it, and you want to leverage your kids' cuteness and all that to be able to appear a certain way. Yeah. So admit that there is a benefit to why we all post on the internet. And I'll say it blatantly, my benefit is 2 ways. It's a commercial benefit why I post. It's a commercial benefit, and for social kung fu, it's a commercial benefit for purpose. So like, the more people can be aware of social kung fu, the more we can get investors, the more we can get more schools aware, so we can go into schools and teach the frameworks to help more kids. But it's not from my worth as a benefit to get it.
Yeah.
And so we've got kids now who have been vlogged since birth, posted about it, now becoming 12-year-olds and going, Mum, you weren't like that. You're fake. Mum, I didn't give you permission to share my I'm getting bullied now because of what you posted.
Yeah.
How selfish are you to have done that? Wrong.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%, because at the end of the day, it's that child's choice at the end of the day when they're old enough to make that decision as to what image of themselves they want to put out there. Because at the end of the day, whatever's up on the internet is going to follow you forever. That vlog comes up in your, university interest in interview. It comes up in your first job interview. It comes up in your relationships in the future. It comes up everywhere, and you can never remove that. And that will follow you till the end of time, and it's bloody scary. So I don't know how parents do it, man. It's just...
Yeah, I get a lot
Your job as a parent is meant to be there to protect this kid. Like, this kid is helpless, they're innocent, they're a clean slate, and why are you going and ruining their life?
Yeah, because people don't think about this. They don't think about what benefit do we get from posting anything. At least be aware of it and say it's because of societal benefit. I just want people to see me a better way. Maybe that's it. Maybe for the models, is like, I just want to be loved. Well, that's one way to potentially get love. Or I just want to do a commercial benefit, and that's what I do it for.
Yeah.
Matt, so tell us, you're a personal branding expert. How do you stand out from the rest? What are some tips and tricks you could give everyone to stand out from everyone else?
When you want to start a personal brand, the first thing you need to focus on is your story and your message. It's the invisible part. Everyone wants to skip that part and be like, oh, that's nothing, that's easy. It's like, no, it's the hardest part. Okay, I put you on Joe Rogan podcast. What are you going to talk about? You're pretty, right? That's great. You're handsome, that's great. But what are you going to talk about for 2 hours? I ring up Lainey from Forbes Australia. Hey, I got this girl on the, want you to put her in Forbes. What's the angle? Message, story. No one thinks about that stuff. And we're so in the bottle, we can't see what the label looks like from the outside of the bottle. We're too close to us. So there's a framework I use to start off with. It's called the man, the mission, and the message. You need to have 3. Every leader, every made-up superhero that we can actually store and call to memory has a message, their origin, what their background is, what their values are, what their talents are, what their weaknesses are. Spider-Man, Brooklyn, Aunt May, Uncle Ben, orphan, not popular, nerd at school, bitten by a radioactive spider, let some criminal go because he was doing wrestling, didn't give a crap about it. That criminal killed his Uncle Ben. And his Uncle Ben then told him, with great power comes great responsibility. Then he chose to use his power for good. Everyone should have a Spider-Man story. Everyone has a Spider-Man story. But then that helped him find his mission. His mission is to protect people from dying like Uncle Ben. And his message is with great power comes great responsibility. Isn't that great? Martin Luther King Jr., black man, 1950s, was actually come from a wealthy background more than actually a poor background. And systematic theologian, got death threats when he started sticking up for his race. It's fascinating, Martin Luther Jr.'s story. When he started speaking publicly about, we need to treat everyone, he took on Mahatma Gandhi's approach to nonviolence, persecution kind of stuff. And he started getting death threats at his home saying, if you don't stop this, we're going to do this and you got to watch your back. And then one night in his biography, he got a call at midnight and something about this guy's voice really rocked him to the core. It said, if you don't stop what you're doing, we're going to blow your house up on Saturday. And he hung up the phone, made himself a cup of coffee, shaking, and said a prayer. And he said out loud something along the lines of, up to this point, I've realized that my faith was not my own, and my intellect got me this far. I actually need you. And he felt a calm voice in his heart saying, just speak what's right always. Think about what needs to be done for the people. And it gave him confidence. That Saturday, he was out speaking, rallying. His family was with him, and his house blew up.
Damn.
Powerful, right? And he kept going and going. So that's his story. His mission was to create equality for all. Like, so blacks aren't treated based on the color of the skin, but the quality of their character. The message is, I have a dream. So this is like same with like Muhammad, same with Jesus. Like they all have like love thy neighbor or some type of mission they're always on. So if you have the story, that validates you as you're a good person to listen to because you got the empathy. Mission is you've got a heaven and hell that you're trying to help people get away from and toward. And you got a message that the world needs to hear, that's shareable, that makes total sense. That takes time.
Mm.
Everyone has it. I've worked it out through with a lot of celebrities and CEOs, and if you want to really make a dent, that's one of the best ways to do it. Then you can start publishing. Then you know what to publish. You know, like you then know who you are. So the content makes sense. Then you're creating a niche audience based on the message and strategy that we spent so much time forming. Then you work toward offers. So I'm an influencer. What's my offer?
Mm.
I'm a public figure. What's my offer? Is it endorsements? Is it, the business of entertainment? So I'm doing long-term contracts with radio, TV, or with joint ventures, whatever it is. Then it's press and PR and authority building. So the PR and press guys will all look at all the things I said previously and be like, yep, tick, 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 tick. I know what your mission is and your message is. You got a good following. You got an offer. You got something to talk about. Yes, that's an easy yes for you for press. Then at the top of the tree, it's partnerships. So affiliate marketing, bloody joint ventures with other businesses, ambassadorships. That's the pinnacle of personal branding.
How did you start your personal branding? What was your story that you promoted to get where you are?
I was a musician to begin with.
You were a musician as well?
Yeah, I was a
Wow.
musician. My biggest sin of personal branding was being a general store. I just offered 7 things and confused everyone. They'd come for a musician and I'd sell them a musician. They'd come for a celebrant. I used to marry people.
No way.
They'd come to get their kid mentored. I'd be their mentor.
Jack of all trades, mate.
Yeah, and there's the whole thing of it takes 10,000 hours to become a master at something means that you have to work 8 hours a day for 3.5 years to actually become a master at something, which limits how much, when you think about how long it takes to get good at something, it then you realize how many little things you can do at once to actually get things good. Very interesting lesson I learned. So I was a musician and I was only known for that for a while. And I realized after auditioning for bands with other guitarists who can play the same 4 chords and riffs that we all can do, we're not forced to be able to do who's the fastest. They didn't do a speed test or a theory test. They said, how do you look? Do you fit the band? Are you good to work with? Can you do the song? So it was much less about ability and more about things like likability, reliability, all those things.
Mm.
And that's when I realized, before personal branding became a big term, that it's all about the personal brand, because you have to be good enough to be in the room, but it's not just enough. You have to be savvy and you have to be likable. I think Harvard Business Review did research and suggested that over 70-odd plus % of the time, if someone likes you, they'll choose you over someone else. So it's not all about like being the smartest on the internet or being smartest in the room. Personality, being respectful and being a good person with that goes a long way, because no one wants to work with a talented jerk.
Mm.
They'll tolerate a talented jerk if that's what needs to happen. But no one wants to work with that by choice.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because when I usually hire for my team, I don't always go for the one of the most experienced or the smart. It's always like, can I get along with you? Do I like you? Are we having a random chat and having a good time?
Yeah.
I look at that the most over anything, personally. But Muzz, do you have any last questions before we start wrapping up?
Really intriguing conversation, mate.
Sorry,
Didn't expect you to be this philosophical. This
Sorry,
is refreshing.
I'm not usually this philosophical, but I feel it today.
We
It's
brought that
Friday.
out in you today.
It's Friday.
It was a lot of fun. That's
Yeah.
very good.
Matt, before we wrap up, one last question for you, if you don't mind. If you had a nice message for the world out there, what would it be? Because you're very philosophical. So what would that be? Something deep. Give us something very nice and deep.
Thinkers need to do and doers need to think. So you're a thinker
Well
or a
said.
doer. Thinkers are very good at planning, very good at observation, very good at details. But their big threat is procrastination, and they don't have a lot to show for the knowledge that they actually have and the care that they actually have. They don't have a lot to show for it. Personal branding is all about personal branding is not about what you know, it's about what you show. Right? So if your knowledge is 10 out of 10, but your content is here, people are only going to see this and judge you based on that level.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's how it is. People only know what you tell them. And then if you're a doer, you need to start to bloody think before you do, because I'm a doer and I've invested in things when I was younger that I didn't know enough about. And that's dumb, because if you just throw things in the dark and stuff like, yep, even if it was successful, you're going to be terrified to lose it all because you have no idea why it got good. And you don't know if you're diving into shallow water or deep water, and you can snap your bloody neck. So you really got to, I get it. Doers are fantastic because we don't need to have all the information before we jump out of the airplane. It's like, oh, I'll make it work on the way down.
Yeah.
You can get things done quick, but the danger is that you could be investing a lot of your time and waste a lot of money and wholehearted heartbreak if you just thought about it a bit more and planned and strategized. So I'm a doer, so I've become much more of a thinker. And I got friends who are thinkers, and I've helped them become much more, like, you don't need to know everything. Mother Teresa wasn't the smartest. Martin Luther was not the smartest. Like, you have to be good enough. Just sometimes good enough is the antidote. It's not to encourage mediocrity, but it's to overcome perfectionism. Sometimes I just needed to be a good enough guitarist to be bloody on the stage. Sometimes the job that you're required to do requires a good enough level, not a 10 out of 10 level that you're trying to provide. So you're actually doing yourself a disservice and letting your team down because you're procrastinating on, oh, it's not ready yet. It's like, no, it's ready. Send it. It's good. You're not working for Ramsay maybe you are working for Ramsay in a Michelin star restaurant, but most people aren't in that position.
Yeah.
So don't overthink it.
We
Great
started
advice.
strong, we ended strong, and really do appreciate your time, Matt. Thank you so much for your time. And this episode, I feel like it's going to be a good one. A lot of people are going to enjoy it. I didn't expect the conversation to go this way.
They're either not going to get this far in and be like, what the hell is this?
I did not expect
But
that.
for us, it was enjoyable.
Yeah,
I enjoyed
that
it.
was
Really.
amazing. But thank you so much, man. We wish you the best and everything. I do think our paths will cross one day, 100%. But
Yeah, I hope so. That'd be good.
But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Do give us a like, subscribe, and if you're listening, do give us a review. It means the world to us. Until then, we'll see you guys in the next one.